He was one of the first soldiers into Sangin, Helmand's cauldron of violence, and awarded the Military Cross for bravery in Iraq.
Well, it's the worst place I've been to. A lot worse than Baghdad. Baghdad's like walking the park compared to here.
Colour Sergeant Trevor Coult volunteered to guard detainees at Camp Bastion. He took up that post in 2011 and soon discovered that many of those taken had to be released.
I would read what they did, what crimes they did, how many bombs they'd planted, who they had shot. It would all be there in massive evidence on a computer, but this evidence wasn't submissible in court.
What happened when you had to release people?
I would walk them to the main gate, hold them by the thumbs, remove the blindfold, cut off the plastic cuff, hold up in front of them a clear bag with all their belongings. They would check it, they would sign it, or if they couldn't write English, they would give me a thumbprint. I would give them 500 Afghani, and off they would go, and they would walk off.
Under the rules used by the British Army, they had 96 hours to question captives. With special ministerial authorisation, that could be extended by 28 days, but eventually they'd have to be passed on to the Afghan authorities, who often released them.
Because of where we were in Bastion, they couldn't have a visit, so they had Skype calls, which were monitored. But whenever I'm sitting off to a flank watching a Skype call, and I'm seeing the guy on the TV screen chatting and laughing, who was in detention 2 weeks previously, who we thought we had handed over to the Afghan authorities, he was on the computer laughing with the detainee still in custody.
No, that one.
For years, British soldiers collected biometric data. Photographs, retina scans, mouth swabs and fingerprints were all routinely gathered, yet Colour Sergeant Coult says the whole effort was pointless because Afghan courts wouldn't accept the evidence.
I know how to do iris scans and fingerprints and mouth swabs. We can catch these guys. But not one person in Afghanistan was ever convicted using biometrics. The Green soldiers were just using this stuff out on the ground, thinking they were doing a great job, when really no one was being convicted at the far end, because the Afghan authorities classed it as white man's magic.
The killing of Captain Lisa Head has prompted the former soldier to make serious allegations. Well, tell me more about this individual who you had evidence had been involved in killing a British bomb disposal officer.
I felt that I basically had a right to know who I was looking after. And, you know, when I read his file, and he was biometrically linked to the IED that was in the ground which killed Captain Lisa Head. I read that, I felt great. I actually felt elated knowing we had that guy in custody. It was fantastic to know that we actually were achieving things. It wasn't until I went home on the 23rd of December for a bit of Christmas leave. Whenever I got back on the 7th of January, I asked where this guy was because he wasn't due to be transferred, but he wasn't in the facility. I was then told by numerous people that they were disgusted. The fact that 2757 had been released over the Christmas period in the middle of a Shura as a Christmas goodwill gesture to the village that he had been from. I went and sat in my porta cabin when I found that out, and I couldn't believe it. It just meant, what's the point? What are we doing there?
The Ministry of Defence denies this version of Captain Head's death.
There is no truth to this allegation. The detainee was transferred to the Afghan authorities, convicted and given a jail sentence.
More broadly, though, the ministry defends its handovers to the Afghans, saying it was up to them to decide whether detainees should be prosecuted.
At that time in my career, I was thinking, when we captured someone and brought them back, oh, it was a tick in the box. Well done, Trev. You've done fantastic. The guys have worked well today. And you were handing these guys across the UK forces thinking that you had actually achieved something. But then whenever I changed job roles and I worked at the far side of the exploitation side of things, I got to see that not very much actually happened in Afghanistan. The majority of them walked free.
In May 2012, however, that system of handing over prisoners was suspended. The British were worried that the Afghans were torturing them, and by then there were strict limits on how long they could be held by the British. Soldiers on the ground started to wonder what the point was in taking captives. Do you think all these problems with detainees, people reappearing in their villages soon after they were captured, led British troops to be more reluctant to take prisoners?
Yes. Yes, I do. I have spoke to people on the ground who said that whenever they found out what was happening to detainees, it made them reluctant to detain them.
So, in preference?
In preference, they would rather shoot them on the ground to save the taxpayer money and to save soldiers being killed. Yes.
It's ordinary units, the so-called Green Army, that Trevor Coult believes were paying the price. Why do you think it's right to talk about this? Because these are very sensitive, secret matters.
We're the Green troops on the ground, and we're being sent in like pieces of meat while IED guys get let go free to kill other Green soldiers. I think it needs to stop. I really do. I'm not willing to have Green troops on the ground, which I once was, being sacrificed just so ministers can sleep well in their bed at night.
Trevor Coult, fated once as a hero, has left the army now and is in dispute with the MOD over compensation after suffering serious injuries in a bomb blast and badly from post-traumatic stress. He was awarded just £6,000.